Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stock Market Update. Today is January 7, 2018. This is the first episode for the year of 2018. Hopefully, everybody is back 100% at trading, and hope that everybody had a great holiday season. So let's take a look at the market. The market started the year with a bang, and you can see on this, these are the FANG stock. Everyone closed with a new all-time high last week, except Apple. Apple is the only one that is still a little bit shy from its all-time high. So I'd be looking for it to come up and make a new high in the near future. And looking at the indexes, as you can see, all the indexes, let me update the arrow here because every one of them is basically closed at a new all-time high, all-time closing high last Friday. So, the New York Stock Exchange Composite, the Dow Jones Transportation, the Dow Jones Industrial, S&P 500, NASDAQ 100, NASDAQ Composite, Russell 2000, they all closed at a new all-time high. Okay? So, with that said, let's go and take a look at the individual indexes. And I'd like to start off looking at the US dollar index market here on the future here. You can see that the dollar is coming down, the index coming down to test this support area here, 91,725. You can see on this monthly chart, and on the weekly, you can see that coming down to this price zone here. Seems like it looks like a little bit of a maybe a head and shoulder, or at least a little bit of a trading band, right, on this range here. And watch it to break below this price zone. If it break below this price zone, then we probably be looking at a lower level on the dollar. The dollar going to get a little bit weaker. And taking a look closely at the daily chart, you could actually see there is indeed a head and shoulder pattern, and it has broken down from it. And we might see this, index come down to this area here, somewhere near the 90.5 area to test the recent low here. Okay, so definitely the dollar is getting weaker, and that reflected the euro. If we take a look at the euro here on the monthly, you can see that it's coming up at this 121 area, right, bumping against this 121 level and then if you look at the weekly chart here, it is actually forming a inverted head and shoulder. And if we break above this 122, then we probably could see these level here, 131 and 137 for the euro. Okay, and if we take a closer look at the daily, you can see that in the daily is actually there is a small head, inverted head and shoulder pattern breakout on within that inverted right shoulder on the weekly, on the bigger inverted head and shoulder. So if this thing break out, come up to this major move of 161, then essentially get up to this baseline here, okay, to this 122 for the euro. Okay. And looking at the British pound is also gaining strength against the dollar. So right now it's coming up to this 135, 136 area. Okay. And on the weekly, you can see that it also appeared to be forming a little bit of an inverted head and shoulder, right? And breaking out of this 136, then it could lead to maybe 140, 145 to 151. So if we look at on the daily, you can see that the daily could be a little bit of a cup and handle, right, pattern here. So we'll kind of watch this zone here, this 137.50. If it break above that, then essentially we got a inverted head and shoulder breakout. And with the weak dollar, we expect the commodity will come up, and that's why on the oil, you can see on oil it's been trading for the last couple years between this, somewhere around 43 to 59 area, and just recently it broke above the 60. So it broken out of this trading range, and if you take a look at the weekly, right, it seems like been a nice basing period for the last couple years, and so it's finally broke this, and could be a double bottom breakout, okay, and we could see up in the 70. For oil in 2018, but taking a look at the daily, we might get a little bit of a pullback in the near term, and if we pull back to this area here, between the 59 and 60, definitely would be keeping an eye out for some long setup to get long on oil, and looking at the gold market, right, and the gold has also been showing some strength. You see this trend line here, ever since it came down and bounced off of this trend line near the end of 2015. Again, you also look at this monthly chart, it seems to be forming a inverted head and shoulder pattern, right, with a neckline of somewhere around 1400. And if we take a look at it closely on the weekly chart, right, let me see, take a look at the weekly chart here, okay. You can see this a little bit more clear on the inverted head and shoulder pattern. Right? So if we come up to this baseline here, this 1400, we could see gold back up at these level here, right? 1571 to somewhere around 1689, okay, in the coming years. So so kind of keep an eye on gold here. And if you take a look out on 30, right, we might get a little bit of a pullback. And then if we come back down to this 1300, 1310, somewhere around there, definitely would be looking for some setup to get long again. I was long on gold, and I closed the position last week, waiting for looking for a pullback, because ever since the mid-December, it's sort of like it's just coming up straight up, right? So. So I think it's due for a little bit of a pullback, but if it continue to push, that's fine. I could sit out for the next move and wait for the next pullback, because if gold is going to break out of this inverted head and shoulder pattern, there's going to be a lot more upside to come for the year. So I'm not going to worry about missing part of the move and then go chase after it, right? So let's look at the bond, right? The 30-year bond here. And also showing that it might pull back a little bit, indicating that I think the market might still expect a little bit of a price interest rate hike expectation. And on the weekly, we can see that it is trying to hold up on this 151 area, but I believe we might see it to come back down to this 149. And if we're looking at the daily, looking at a little bit closer, you can see that it's actually forming a little bit of a head and shoulder pattern. Right? If it come down to this 149 area, 149.12, then that basically testing this neckline for this head and shoulder. And if we break down, then these are the extension that we'd be looking at some of the level, okay, for the head and shoulder to tag as a major move. Okay, so that's the 30-year bond. And so let's take a look at the E-mini, the S&P 500 future here. Been relentless, right? Look at this, one time framing up on a monthly, and on the weekly, look at this candle. It's just ridiculous. So on the daily, we do see some projection that we might be able to get, and I'm essentially looking at this major move, this symmetry move here, right? And here we basically got 100% pretty much tag last week on Friday. So we might see a little bit pullback, and it could come down to 2700 area, right? But doesn't mean that it will. Okay, so those are the numbers that I'd be looking at. If it pull back next week, if it continue to push, then these are the numbers that I'd be focusing on the extension on the upside. So it'd be interesting to watch for the coming week. And here's the NQ, the E-mini for the NASDAQ 100. And again, you can see on the monthly, it just continue to move up, and on the weekly, big green candle here, right? And then on the daily, again, looking at this major move for this symmetry move, right? And basically getting clear, 6670.50 would be 100% major move, and it actually closed at 67.75 on Friday. So we might get a little bit more upside, and maybe we get a little bit of a pullback down here at the 65.65 to 65.30 area. But if it continue to push, then 67.50, 6800, even at 68.59, right? So I never know. This market is just relentless. So yeah, every time you try to fade the upside, get killed. Right? I tell you, I've been saying that all my recent losses is basically, try to go counter trend on the upside. Right? It's trading on the downside to try to pick counter trend trade against the up move. That is stupid. Every time I do that, I lose money. So that tells you how good I am at playing the counter trend. Okay. So anyway, here's the Russell 2000. And you can see Russell 2000, not as strong as the other indexes, but regardless, it did close, positive, right? So, and here's the, a little bit of a resistance up here, somewhere around this 1560 area. But again, we could see a little bit of a major move based on this particular swing here, right? This big swing. Let me shrink this down so we could see it. Right. So based on this particular swing, and the major move up here would be 1624.80. So that would be quite a move. But basically it's trying to base here. So maybe it's balancing a little bit more, and then make this upside move, right? So basically you try to break out of this, this little box here, and maybe we get another major move up here, right? So we'll see. And here is the YM, which is the Dow Jones E-mini future. Okay, and as you can see again, just been moving up strongly, just like all the other indexes. Okay, and here is the major move. Okay, oops, let me get this. So the 100% of this symmetry move is 25,474, and if you get up to 1618 extension, it's gonna be pretty close to 26,000. Right? It's 25,973. But if we're gonna see a pullback, it could pull back to retest that 25,000 again. So be somewhere around 25,071. Okay, maybe we'll see that. When the market gets spooked a little bit. I don't know by what, but I'm sure something will come along. Okay, so take a look at the cash index, the transportation. Let's take a look at the transportation, the Dow Jones transportation. As you recall, I have all these big long-term channel, right? And it's still within that big channel here on the transportation. Here's the weekly look. And on the daily look, we got a little bit of spinning top on Friday. Okay, so maybe get a little bit of tiring. So we might see a little bit of a pullback, but definitely it's not topping. Right, doesn't seem to indicate that it's a top here. Right, and then the New York Stock Exchange Composite. Right, so again, still within this channel here. Right, on the monthly and weekly, strong week close. And look at all these gap, right? Okay, so and the Dow Jones Industrial, the cash basis, right? Again, still inside that big channel, right? Strong weekly close, right? And here are the number for the cash index. Extension 100% is 25,483.30. If we pull back to the 50%, somewhere around 50%, it will be 25,095.85. So, maybe 25,000 get retested. Right? And possibly maybe even get below that and retest 24,868 area. And looking at the S&P 500, right? Here's the monthly, okay? And the weekly, and here's the daily. So the daily number is getting up, tagged pretty close to that 100%, 2,743.83, right? So if we're gonna pull back, we're basically looking at somewhere around 2,700, right? If it continue to push, and we'd be looking at the possibility of 2772, 2787. Okay, those are big numbers. Okay, and here we're looking at the NASDAQ 100. See, the NASDAQ 100 is actually bumping up against this upper channel trend line here. Right? A lot of people think this market going to roll over when it was bumping up against this particular trend line. Like I said, a lot of time the market, or more, if not all the time, the market will never do what most people think it will do, or the obvious thing, right? So will we see a little bit of a pullback from this? Don't know, right? Your guess is as good as mine. So I'm just going to wait for the price to tell me what it's going to do. Okay? So here's the some of the extension, the projected level to watch. If it continue to push, we're basically looking at 6684.90. That's 100%. And if it continue to push up, we'll be looking at anywhere between 6763 to 6863. So on the downside, if we see a pullback, maybe we see a 6574 to 6540. Okay. And here is the Russell 2000. Right, for the Russell 2000, the monthly, again, just like all the other indexes, still within this big channel, nothing to write home about of any imminent top. And here's the weekly, and here is the daily. Don't get me wrong, I think the market is overstretched, but anybody try to call this market top is ridiculous, because there is nothing there in the internal to say this market has top or even close to a top. Okay, if they are looking at the right thing, they could see that. Okay, I don't care what the fundamental data is saying, because the fundamental data could take a long time before it actually play out by human emotion. Okay, so anyway, taking a look at the Russell 2000, the upside is 1582.90. That's 100% of this this symmetry move that I'm looking at. Okay, all right, so that would be give this 100% move. Okay, and if it's continue to push, then these are the numbers that I'll be looking at, so basically above 1600. But if it pull back, then I'm looking at 1559, somewhere around there. Okay, and here is the NASDAQ composite. Again, looking at the monthly, you see that it book above this big channel here. All right, so see, those things, those trend line and everything else is just for luck. Doesn't mean if the price gonna hit, it's gonna reverse. Right? It just gives you some indication to say, hey, when it get to this point, keep an eye on it to see what the price action gonna be. It doesn't mean that it's gonna reverse. Just keep an eye on it. Right? Now, if people was thinking about shorting this, right, when it bump up at this level, well, they just got a rude awakening last week. Right? So just play the price action, people. Right? Let the market tell us what to do. Don't try to tell the market what to do, or say what the market should do. They don't care. The market don't care what you have to say or what you think it should be doing. All right? It will do what it will do. Period. So stop fighting it. Right? Does it make sense for the market to be this high? Absolutely not. Right? But when does the market actually make sense? Right? If it makes sense, then everybody will be a winner. There won't be any losers. Right? Okay? So anyway, here's the composite, right? 71, 73, that's 100%. If we pull back, 70, 38. If we move up, here are the number 72, 46, 73, 39. Okay, and looking at the VIX, right? Did we see that? Well, we already looked through the VIX, right? Maybe we'll look at it again. I don't remember. So, but anyway, right, here's the monthly look on the VIX, pretty flat, still on the 10. Here's the weekly, and here's the daily. So if the market pull back, we might see it pop up to this 11. Right? So just kind of keep an eye on that. And here's the ETF for the S&P 500, the SPY. Right? Here's the monthly look, the weekly, strong weekly close, and here are the daily. Right, so we're just going to look at the daily on these ETF because we already seen the monthly and weekly chart for the cash index and the in the future. So it's not going to be that much different for the daily, except for the factors, you know, the multiplier, right, or the divider. Okay. So for the SPY, you're basically looking at a 100% symmetry move on this. This here will be 273.75, and if it continue to push, these are the number here. And if we see a pullback, we might see a pullback to 270. Okay, right, and then on the near term, and here's the Q. So we're going to take a look at the Q, and again, the Q here for the 100% is basically 162.41, right? And if it continue to push up, then we're basically looking at possibility of between 164 to 166.5, and if we're going to pull back, we could see 159. Okay, and then the Russell 2000, right? The IWM. Okay, I'm basically looking at this particular move, this particular swing for the symmetry move. All right, and the 100% is 157.52, a little bit away. Right, okay, because the Russell closed at 154.79, and the 618 is 155.56, but you know, it is a little bit weaker than all the other indexes. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Russell 2000, the IWM, to be bouncing around in this zone here for a while, between 153 and 155 area. I mean 153 and 154, yeah, 155 area, yeah. Wouldn't be surprised to see it bounce around a little bit before it, make a little break above and try to tag this 157. So we'll see how the market will react next week on a pullback, if any kind of a pullback show up. Right. So, and then on the diamond, the Dow Jones Industrial ETF, we're basically looking at 254.32 on the upside to that 100% symmetry move. Pull back to 50.60, and if it continue to push, then we could see 256 to 259 area. Okay, so that will basically push the Dow Jones Industrial close to 26,000. All right, so that is it for the market update for the first week of 2018. Give it a thumbs up if you find this video useful and informative, because that will give me a feedback of how useful it is to you, and also encourages me to continue to make these video. And if you're not a subscriber to my YouTube video channel, click on the subscribe button at the lower bottom right hand corner and subscribe to my video channel. And you can also follow me on my Twitter account at smtraderCA. So good luck on all of your trading, and Happy New Year, and have a great weekend.